Did you see that the Senate voted to block the For the People voting rights bill? Seth Meyers did. He said, but not until they got their voting paperwork in order. Let's see. I got my license, passport, tax returns, high school yearbook. Okay, I think I'm ready for my riddle. Jimmy Fallon said, Senate Republicans haven't been this happy since Kenny G started touring again. Fallon, yeah, Democrats wanted things like automatic voter registration and Election Day to be a national holiday, while Republicans wanted every polling place to be at a yacht club. Seth, Republican Senator Mike Lee said in an interview with Sean Hannity that the For the People Voting Rights Act was, quote, written in hell by the devil himself, which is also what it says on the poster for Fast 9. I liked Fast 9, Seth Meyers. I've seen it twice. Don't ask why. Love those movies. Fast 9. It knows what it is. That's all I'm saying. Go watch it. Stephen Colbert, yeah, the Senate's founding purpose to do nothing. It's right there in Article 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate where one wizened ancient turtle man with no regard for anything but the self-preservation of his own power shall, with his pockets stuffed with greasy bags full of money, strangle the hope of all who dare to dream of true democracy and recognize April as National Jazz Month. Vulture reviewed Rory Scovel's new special, and they sat halfway through Rory Scovel's new comedy special, which is called Live Without Fear. Rory Scovel stands on stage, pulls a cheap, shiny red tablecloth from one of the front row tables, and drapes it over his shoulders like a cape. That moment, which then escalates into a high-key, goofy set of tablecloth cape bits, has the feeling of a train that's come fully off the rails, a bizarre, spontaneous choice that makes no sense whatsoever, and is a result of nothing at all. Now I want to see this thing. I mean, not that I didn't, but now I want to go do that next. That's what I'm trying to say here. That's also the aim, the appeal of what Scovel's trying to do. Live Without Fear was recorded in 2018, a part documentary, part stand-up special that combines footage from 6 straight nights of fully improvised live stand-up performances at the Relapse Theater in Atlanta. Scovel tells the camera he has written nothing for the shows. This is not an hour of material he's been slowly building for months. The special's not designed as a capstone achievement. Scovel says a little bit of that takes you away from the spontaneous thing that I enjoy. So now I'm going to try to figure out how to make it just the spontaneous stuff. Those are my favorite parts of every show, the things that I can't predict. Vulture also tells us if you've been holding out for an LGBTQ plus hero, never fear, Netflix is saving us with Q-Force. It's a new animated series. The series stars Sean Hayes, Wanda Sykes, Gary Cole, Patty Harrison, Matt Rogers, David Harbour, and Laurie Metcalf. And because Pride Month is every month, Q-Force is coming to Netflix on September 2nd. A potential villain observes, you can't pander to the gays, they can smell it. You're acting like Citibank at Pride. Pete Holmes spoke to High Times. Pete said, I went to a Christian college where there was no drinking culture, partying, drugs, or casual sex. There were exceptions to this, but you really had to go out of your way to find them. So for a lot of college, I was bored. And I'm really glad I was. I'm sort of square, and I didn't smoke pot until I was 28, which isn't to say I think pot is evil. I think pot is wonderful, though I'm a little worried if 19-year-old Pete had found pot, drinking, or sex. I was so bored without those things that I had to start doing improv, and then I had to start doing stand-up. It was good for me to be so bored that I started writing things, and I started doing stand-up, and once I started doing those things, I started getting feedback, hey, you're good at this, and that meant so much to me. Whenever I get stoned, I'm always like, we got to lively up ourselves. My favorite way to smoke pot is to go on Getting Dug with High. I love an audience when I'm stoned because I want to keep the energy going, but I don't perform stand-up stoned. I used to be really superstitious that weed was bad for creativity. The first time I smoked was when I was 28, and I had an audition the next day for an improv team in New York. I blew it so hard because I didn't know weed hangovers were a thing. Nobody had explained that to me the next day. You might have cobwebs or be a little foggy. Have you seen Ted Lasso yet? It's on Apple TV Plus. Watch season 1 because season 2 is just weeks away. Ted Lasso was my favorite thing of 2020. I don't mean favorite comedy. I don't mean favorite TV show. I mean favorite thing. Bill Lawrence is the creator, and he said on Ted Lasso, every writer who came in had only seen the old videos and stuff that Jason Sudeikis had done. Ted Lasso was like a promo on NBC during college football games. That's where the character first appeared. Lawrence said, and I think everybody was surprised when we told them the show was actually about empathy, forgiveness, and mentorship. And everybody had to say who their mentor was that got them into Hollywood or told them they could actually do this type of stuff. And everybody had such interesting stories, and they all found their way into that show. It's all straight from them. It's what we do. Steal from the writers' lives and then don't give them any credit for it. Awards Daily spoke to Seth Meyers. They asked Seth Meyers, what's the guest that has surprised you the most? Seth Meyers said, what a good question. That's what people do when they don't have an answer. You go, that's a really good question. And then you pause. That buys you like 10 seconds to think. So Seth Meyers took the break, thought about it, and then said, James Spader, who's just lovely and one of the most interesting guests. I don't think I've ever asked James Spader a second question. You ask him one thing and then he tells the most lyrical, beautiful 10-minute story. Well, Seth Meyers, is there a question you wish more people asked you? Seth Meyers said, I wish more people said, are you upset that no one gives your Vince Vaughn impression the credit it deserves? And the answer would be yes. Does Seth Meyers have a dream guest? It could be anyone dead or alive. Seth said, if I can have a dead person, I will say Benjamin Franklin. I just think he was around for a lot of important history. And I believe him to be a dirty dog who would have good stuff. Now, I know you guys are saying, Johnny Mac, you never talk about Conan O'Brien. Like, Conan probably deserved 1, maybe 2 full episodes this week, and you've barely mentioned him. Don't worry, I will mention him right now. The AV Club had somebody in the audience for one of the final tapings, and they wrote, Conan's fans aren't who you think anymore. The writer said, when I first saw Conan O'Brien live, it was the year 2000, and he was still string dancing around 30 Rock as the host of Late Night. The crowd was all 20 and 30-somethings, itching for a glimpse at Conan's manic energy and outsider integrity. In many ways, the crowd at this taping on June 13th of this year was the same. Some 20-odd years later, most people in the audience barely looked old enough to remember when Late Night debuted in 93, if they were even born then. It felt like the crowd was there because they've fallen in love with Conan's online persona through YouTube videos and his podcast. They also said that Conan seemed done. When Conan took the stage, he seemed excited, especially given the taping was his first back in a live audience as the pandemic began. Still, it didn't seem like Conan was operating at 100%. He didn't have the fervor or fever I witnessed when I first saw him 20 years ago. Then he spent a good portion of time before the show and doing crowd work and even dancing. Now he doesn't seem as interested in engaging. It's understandable. He's done almost 4,500 episodes of his late night show in one form or another. And that has to wear on a person. If the passion for the project isn't there anymore, we can't blame Conan for stepping away. And that is your comedy news for today. You can follow this show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. Hey, new episode of The Weekly Comedy Thing. That's the show I host on the Live by Live app. It is free. You get about an hour of me. I tell some stories like I do on this podcast, but not the same stories. And then I play a bit from the comedians. So say I told a Jim Gaffigan story, I would then play Jim Gaffigan. See how that works? That's called The Weekly Comedy Thing. It's on the Live by Live app. New episode up this morning. I'm back here with this tomorrow.